Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Screen Sector Networking event, which is being funded by Norfolk County Council, but organised in association with our local authority partners and East Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. We won't keep you long because the core of this afternoon's activity is to allow you to network with each other. My name is Graham Plant and I'm the Deputy Leader of Norfolk County Council. We are here today because of our local authority partners. We're prepared to work with ourselves and the East Anglia LEP to deliver a primary piece of research into the Norfolk screen sector. A couple of years ago, we were largely unaware of the numbers of screen sector practitioners working in Norfolk, the amount or types of businesses dedicated to screen activity, and the value to the economy of the work that you've delivered. I have to say that Olsberg SPI, the company who won the tender to undertake the research for us, have done a wonderful job in pulling together the research report. And they've advised us that if we want to better understand our local screen sector, we need to continue the conversation the research started. Olsberg SPI made a number of recommendations, including continuing to run the annual screen sector surveys and collaborating to obtain data on activity. Such data is required as an evidence base for any future funding bids we might want to make to support the sector. And SPI recommended we support networking events, which are so important for a sector based largely on freelance activity. Tonight's event, it's daytime, isn't it? Today's event is our step in making use of the SPI research findings. We'll be undertaking a further screen sector survey in the autumn, and we'd appreciate your cooperation in supporting us to learn more about your activities and how we can better support an increase in film activity in the future. For the moment, I just want to say thank you for working with Olsberg SPI on their original research piece and in taking time to join us today. In just over a minute's time, my colleague Chris Starkey from the East Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership will provide a brief overview of the broader context behind this event. I invite you to now watch a screen sector showreel created to promote both the Norfolk and Suffolk screen sector to the national and international screen sector. This has been produced by the Creative Unlimited team. We hope it will inspire and create additional interest into the Norfolk and Suffolk offer and in your professional and technical abilities. Thank you.
I'm looking for somewhere.
I liked you as a robot cowboy in Westworld.
Sounds fairly typical for an art school.
So, thank you very much for showing that film. Fantastic piece of work, and thank you all really for coming along this afternoon. My name's Chris Starkey. I'm the Chief Executive of the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. Our job is to work bringing business, education and the public sector together to support jobs and opportunity across both Norfolk and Suffolk. And just a word about that film. I'm really proud of the work our New Anglia Creative Unlimited team have done in commissioning a number of show reels, of which that was the first of 3. And thanks in particular to Cut the Mustard, who created the film for us. As you probably know, we're working with Norwich University of the Arts and a range of other partners to maximise the use of this film and other show reels to promote the area, and feel free to take advantage of that film. It's available for anyone to use to promote our capabilities. So I'm not sure how many of you engage directly with our research commission into the size, shape, value, growth potential and needs of the sector, but obviously we're grateful to all of you who contributed. As a group of local authority partners, we hadn't really worked together to commission research into the size, the shape, the value, the growth potential and the needs of the sector. The research has put together a really informative and compelling research piece. I'm hoping, but it's not appearing up on screen anyway, the slides, so never mind, I will tell you all about it. Here it is. So the research delivered by Olsberg gave us a really informative and compelling piece of data, research that puts us in a really great place to work together to support what is a really important sector. So I'm just going to run through really some of the key takeaways from the report. First and foremost, the exponential growth that is taking place in the international and UK film sector. Sure, not a secret to any of you here tonight, this afternoon, I should say. And of course, SPI's view that this will continue to grow for at least the next 5 years. Critically, the research suggested Norfolk itself wasn't benefiting from the opportunity at the present time, hence the call to action, hence why we want to all work together. So we have a great opportunity. And one of the challenges has been trying to find out just how much commercial film-related activity is actually taking place within Norfolk itself. And therefore, of course, its value to our economy. If we could have the next slide, please. Since the closure of Screen East in 2010, we haven't had any central agency dedicated to the researching and recording of screen activity inside Norfolk. Norfolk Screen, more of whom later, some of our district authorities and other private sector partners are keeping good records of the individual pieces of work they're engaged with, but we're going to need to bring all of that together to ensure the data recorded is all in one place and as up to date as possible. SPI themselves delivered a database of 26 Norfolk locations which have been used in feature films, and by the end of the research project had created a second database which listed 672 Norfolk-based individuals and companies. So this list had been collated from desktop research by trawling databases, Companies House and other film directories. It showed that, unsurprisingly, these businesses are small. Indeed, more than half are freelancers or self-employed. 88% work in film and TV, and interestingly, a third work in new digital media. I suspect that percentage will grow. Of course, while the database requires further interrogation, it does suggest we've got a good, strong starting point. Indeed, if we were to be competitive with our Suffolk colleagues, we actually have a bigger sector than operating across the border in Suffolk. And of course, greater number of individuals involved than we'd anticipated locally. But, and here's the big but, there is huge potential for further growth, and we believe Norfolk's a great place to launch a career and business. So here's our second Creative Unlimited showreel, which is aimed at encouraging people to do just that.
So, you want to start or grow a business in the screen industry? Film, TV, animation, VFX? Choose Norfolk. Choose Suffolk. Shoot East. You'll be an outstanding company. There are many successful screen sector businesses in the region, including multi-award-winning production companies such as Genesius Pictures, Ember Films, iFilm, and Lexhag VFX, working on world-renowned content. And there are plenty of big players visiting to shoot in the region's many stunning and unique locations, as well as studio spaces such as Raynham Hangar, Epic, and October Studios. Based in the heart of Norfolk, Norwich University of the Arts is a provider of specialist courses in film, animation, and visual effects that are practical, skills-based, and led by industry professionals. NUA has been nurturing industry-ready graduates for decades, impactfully contributing to the thriving creative community in the region. When establishing a screen sector business, support is key. New Anglia Growth Hub offers a range of support services to help get your businesses off the ground in Norfolk and Suffolk, including free advice and referral to relevant grants and other finance opportunities. NWES and Mentor also offer similar startup support services, as well as providing office space for startups across the region. Places like Fuel Studios and Ipswich Waterfront Innovation Centre also offer flexible business spaces for digital creative startups, alongside larger businesses, allowing prime opportunities for collaboration and networking. And Norwich University of the Arts offers alumni-free, long-term business advice and support through their Ideas Factory service. Start your business in Norfolk. Start your business in Suffolk. Grow your business here.
Thank you. I think you agree, another great showreel, and again, available for people to utilise in whichever way you would like. So returning to the original research, SPI helped identify some of Norfolk's key strengths and, of course, key challenges to sector growth. We noted that one of the key strengths identified is the combination of higher and further education providers, and in particular the way that these organisations, City College Norwich, Norwich University of the Arts and the University of East Anglia in particular, are working together with the sector to develop a pool of talented professionals ready to take advantage of job opportunities which might come our way. And you'll be hearing shortly from Norwich University of the Arts on some follow-up research it's commissioned. After NUA's research, you'll hear from Artemis Films, which has big and exciting plans for film studio infrastructure in Norfolk. And then from Norfolk Screen on the work it's doing to help facilitate and continue conversations. And I'm really grateful for the work all three organisations are doing right now, as all three are critical components in growing the film sector in the county. We need the talented people through the university. We need increased capacity and studio space through Artemis. And of course, we need Norfolk Screen to do the great work they do in attracting filming into the county. The final slide summarises SPI's overall recommendations made to the research funding bodies in terms of future steps to support the local screen sector. As you can imagine, there is plenty of debate going on within and outside the organisations on how to best utilise the information we've received and what our potential next steps might be. But I can assure you that Norfolk County Council, the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership, and our other local authority stakeholders are keen to continue the discussions the research has started. And of course, It's worth highlighting the work a number of our district colleagues are doing as well. The West Norfolk team is no exception. If we can have the next slide, please. The next item reminds you, via a couple of stills from the personal life of David Copperfield, which was filmed in West Norfolk, that we already have excellent location filming taking place in the county. Indeed, my colleague who actually wrote the script for me is doubling as an extra today in the filming of Chemistry of Death, which is a Paramount Plus production, which is filming right now in Norfolk. So next up is the West Norfolk showreel, which is aimed at encouraging film location shooting across the borough of Kings Lynn and West Norfolk. And after the showreel, I'm delighted to welcome onto the stage Professor Lara Anderson, who will then introduce the latest research undertaken by Norwich University of the Arts. Thank you very much.
Hi, folks. I'm Lara Anderson. I am the Pro-Vice Chancellor Academic at Norwich University of the Arts, but probably more relevant to this conversation is that I'm also their Professor of Screen Education because of my background in film, games, and XR. Soon after I arrived in Norwich in 2021, I began exploring the idea of a new screen production complex in Norfolk. We soon began to refer to it as Studio East. And this aspiration was to draw inward investment into the region to create a screen and creative tech complex, which our university would support by creating bespoke training packages to fulfill the specific skills gaps that stand in the way of the success of such a venture. And by so doing, significantly increase job opportunities for local residents and those already studying or working in the screen and creative tech industries in Norfolk. But the last thing I wanted to do was to ask anyone to join me in pursuing some sort of folly. And so our university commissioned a feasibility study through the Time and Space Company, giving clear instructions to them that we weren't looking for reassurances, but honest answers about what the region could viably support. We are very lucky to be working with the Time and Space Company as they are a unique venture. They are a placemaking specialist focused on realizing venture capital opportunities across the arts and culture, entertainment, heritage, education, and hospitality sectors. Their work involves first researching markets to ensure a concept is commercially viable, and if so, then developing a business plan to ensure the right strategy is chosen and the project successfully transitions from an idea into a reality. They also have the ability to operate the resultant facilities with their current portfolio, including Wimbledon Film and TV Studios, a 250,000 square foot complex, and home to films such as The Iron Lady, the Custard Factory, which transformed the once abandoned 16-acre Bird's Custard Factory in Birmingham into a workspace for over 400 individual businesses, which resulted in the single largest cluster of tech, digital, and creative SMEs outside of London, and Enterprise City in Manchester on the site of the old Granada TV studios, which is a £1.3 billion mixed-use development preserving a much-loved heritage site while connecting Manchester's tech, digital, and creative industries. So presenting the outcome of the Studio East feasibility study today is Pierce Reed, the founder and managing partner of Time and Space. We are so pleased we are able to work together on researching the possibilities for Norfolk, and I look forward to hearing what he has to say and to hearing your further thoughts on the research he presents. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Lara, for that. And I can testify Lara made it very clear at the point we had this intriguing commission that we were under no circumstances as a business to massage our findings, shall we say, which I'm looking forward to taking you through now. As a business, one of the other things which we do, which you've just heard, is actually operate film and television studios. So we're the proud owner-operator of Twickenham Film Studios currently at the moment, and we are also investing heavily into the regions. So we have a studio complex coming online in Liverpool at the old Littlewoods factory where they used to do the pools, and also in the Midlands at a site not far from the custard factory, which is a venture Stephen Knight, the writer, producer, director of Peaky Blinders, is heading up. So we feel very passionate about the growth and the so-called levelling up agenda, whatever that actually means in the end. We're already doing our own levelling up agenda. And as I say, I'm pleased to take you through our findings, which have been very surprising, because this commission from NUA to us was really, for us, building on the Olsberg report, to go to market and to speak to industry and to actually get industry's response firsthand. We're very fortunate that we work with producers day in, day out. I used to be a filmmaker myself, so we were well positioned and we were very grateful for the commission, and have always got a keen eye on opportunity into the future. So without further ado, I'll take you through our findings. In essence, the methodology was for us to ask the same 10 questions to industry people, and predominantly those people being the end users, such as your Netflixes and streamers, but also people producing drama as well as independent films. So we had a thorough breadth of people that we wanted to approach to get a sort of very clear understanding as to what people's perception is of this project in Norfolk. This gentleman you're looking at here is actually our chairman, Professor Anthony Lilly, who's been part of this process, and some of you, I'm sure, particularly those of you wearing educational caps, will be aware of his presence in the industry. He is a very influential guy who's had a keen interest in this, and essentially covered off this executive summary with the following recommendations, which is that we shouldn't just be looking to develop potentially a film studio in the region, but instead looking to create a cluster of creative industries companies and anchoring cultural activities around those. He thinks we should take a proactive view of technological changes in the media sector, which is obvious. I was personally surprised, and I'm ashamed to say this, that the next point, that the studio or the facility should be net zero by design, is actually a major point that's come through in this project. We obviously need to integrate skills, development and training, because the proposition is highly reliant on that. And we obviously, with that in mind, and particularly with the great work that the NUA do day in, day out, provides a platform for supporting R&D and innovation opportunities. So, going back to Lara's question, and I remember this clearly when we were being interviewed, does the concept have saliency, was the question. So who do we approach? We approached hundreds of companies, some of which you can see on the screen here, who did respond, others who wouldn't respond, and some who've reserved judgment for the time being. But the response generally has been fantastic. And these are the respondents who we've been able to rely on for their opinions. So you can see a wide breadth of producers and industry organisations here. So the question of filming in Norfolk, would you consider filming in Norfolk? That was the acid question. And we were slightly surprised at the respondents here. So 61% have said yes, they would. And that, in fact, to talk to the point made earlier, is based on prior experience of filming in the region. So the locations and the vast variety of shooting and filming locations in this area are what anchor this opportunity in many regards, we believe. And that's a trend we see in Liverpool and Birmingham, and also another site we have down in Ashford in Kent, where there are proactive film offices, typically, with a strong degree of location filming. There tends to be a strong need for a studio, which makes sense. As for the current market offering, that again didn't surprise us, but it was good to have it endorsed. People want to see local infrastructure and to have facilities that are contained around a particular facility. So that could be anything from hotel accommodation through to star apartments for the cast that are shooting in the region. The associated cost impacts, again, not a surprise. Productions want to see value for money, but they all agreed that the cost of accommodation would be a concern to have crews traditionally shooting, let's say, in London, come to Norfolk. So that, again, talks to our belief that there should be a mixed-use development which has accommodation built into its facility, which helps then grow the overall offering and indeed the experience for the client using the studios. In terms of the potential for what sort of production facility would influence choice, this was a bit of a mixed bag, as you can see here, but consistently, particularly those productions who are already using virtual production and those sort of studios, they cited R&D and that as being something that would help create a unique selling point for them to come to Norfolk. And then moving on swiftly to the skills gaps, this again evidenced a major need. We know there's a huge shortfall in the industry at large. It's a fundamental problem. There's too much studio space being developed and not enough labour to backfill it. That's actually the story we're seeing behind the scenes day in, day out. And in particular, for those areas which are having technological infrastructure and advances invested into them. So later on in my slides, you'll see an interview which I personally conducted with a guy called David Coupland, who formerly was head of worldwide studios at Amazon Studios and HBO, and he spends most of his life sourcing studios in the UK based in the States, and he has a particular view on where the trajectory of virtual production and virtual reality studios should go, which talks very harmoniously to, I think, the opportunity we have here. In terms of drawing on people's specific responses around training and skills, if you look at Original Syndicate there, which is the biggest quote, that's actually where David is based now. Now, Original Syndicate are investing and working highly collaboratively with local university bodies to create training platforms in their studios in the US. And you'll be fascinated, I hope, to hear what he has to share, because I think it does talk to where, as I say, the trajectory of the UK market is going in terms of virtual production in particular. I'll be frank, and I think this is being recorded, so I should be careful what I say, but on the left and the right, I wasn't particularly bowled over by those responses, which are quite standard. But that's where I think Original Syndicate are a really interesting partner and advocate, should we say, of this potential project. So in terms of skilled newcomers coming into the sector, this was actually 50-50, as you can see from the pie chart. What it doesn't take into account, though, is a very serious issue, which is not just about newcomers coming into the industry, but about the existing crew and cast, who are probably my age, in their 40s, who are used to filming and delivering their workflows in a particular way, which also requires a degree of education and training in terms of how those particular studios, virtual production studios, get used, which ultimately, let's not forget, are designed to help the end user save money and not have a mega carbon footprint, and actually get as much value on screen as possible. Unfortunately, the traditional model of building a set in a studio and traveling and filming and flying around the world has proven to be none of those things. And what we have to do right now to cope with the demand and the amount of studios that are being built is address some of these workflows in a relevant way, working with people who are seeing how the industry is going to pan out in the next 5 to 10 years. And that, again, is where I think David is a great advocate. Technological developments. So again, there's lots of different ways and means, and there's some fantastic companies, as we've seen in the city centre even, who are doing a number of the things you're seeing on screen here. But virtual production is the only way, in my view, as a sort of major studio operator, that the industry can continue to afford to produce content at the rate, let's say, a Netflix has over the last 10 years. The value and the savings that they stand to make from having that facility, which means you don't have to travel, and you can train and recruit locally into an area which provides the skill set for the new workflows that are emerging, is crucial, I believe, to the long-term sustainable success of the UK film industry. And just to put that into context, I was with Adrian Wotton, who's the CFO of the British Film Commission, a couple of weeks ago on a panel, and he told me that the GDP of the UK film market today is nearly £6 billion per annum. And I was sort of saying to him, well, are you concerned there's too much studio space coming online and eventually it's going to plateau out? And he said, Piers, in 2025, it will be at least 9, probably 10 billion. So the upsurge in demand is not going to go away. The reality is London is at sort of a capacity now where it's not really very viable to develop more studios. The cost of development has gone up. We do have the levelling up agenda. And beyond that, regions that offer, as the point was just made, a level of critical infrastructure, be that crew, resource, transport links, that will give a region such as Norfolk a massive opportunity to build upon, with the right facilities also then growing on top of that. So in terms of the staff training and development, again, pretty obvious responses here. People are feeling that the industry is not really breaking any records in terms of training and skills. And what I mean by that is actually seeing people go into university and come out the other end and get a job straight away. There seems to be a frustration or a disconnect, I sense, between a lot of the universities and postgraduates that come out of the buildings and of those opportunities and into the industry. And that's something which I think is fundamental to any mixed-use or studio development. The collaborations, again, I'm sure many of you in the room would recognise some of the responses here. A bit of a mixed bag again, but clearly we are seeing, even in our studio in Twickenham, that brands are investing a lot into virtual production studios in terms of their hire of them and the use of them. And that's obviously funded predominantly by, advertising agencies funded by brands are using our studios in Twickenham. And then in terms of the research and development and where these companies we've interviewed spend their money, I think we may need to take this with a slight pinch of salt, but ultimately there is a desire, particularly amongst the bigger corporations, to invest in grassroots levels. But we need, as an industry, to respond more wholly across the board and not just rely on those bigger companies to do it, in our view. In terms of the R&D funding, again, this sort of talks to why and how those respondents have come back with their views. The tax break, which I'm sure you're familiar with, has been a major driver for production shooting in the UK for many, many years. That's a really, really critical thing, which isn't going anywhere soon, I'm pleased to say, but we now need to build on that with other grant funding. And in the absence of that, our studio is looking at investing into its own academy, working in collaboration with, for example, in Liverpool, John Moores University, the campus up at the Littlewoods building. We're actually jointly partnering to deliver a vocational training opportunity in and around the studios, both in location and in the sets on the stages. So that is the sort of initiative which I think everyone should be considering for a venture in this area. And then as for additional thoughts, here is David, very charming individual, who is it's a great title, this, the Chief Growth Officer of Original Syndicate. And he gives his forthright views on what we asked him. He was one of the respondents. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to play you a clip now of his thoughts.
So for me, spent 9 years freelancing in the UK and internationally, worked around the world, working in the production team, kind of working my way up the ranks there. And then in 2017, right at the beginning, I joined HBO, where I worked for just over 4.5 years as a production executive for most of that period of time. As a production executive, I worked on shows and worked with producers and whatnot on shows, but I also had very specific responsibilities around stage space, around incentives, government relations, and anything that kind of fit into those brackets. And again, that kind of went internationally as well as domestically in the US. And so I spent a lot of time focused on those parts of it. And part of that was, when a project came to us, right, to myself and my boss at the time, and we were asked to look at the viability of where to shoot that production. We would do that investigative work at times, and even if it's just as simple as speaking to producers on the ground or government bodies on the ground, or maybe it was a bit more in depth, depending on what it was. But we kind of always kept a finger on the pulse of what the world was doing and how things were advancing and growing. I then left there a year ago now, maybe just over, I think it's about a year ago, and joined Amazon. And the move over there was more, wasn't sure if it was going to be long or short term, but it was of interest to me because Amazon Studios are essentially the world's biggest startup, right? They're a studio that are producing hundreds and hundreds of shows internationally, but at the same time, they're building the studio, right? They're building the infrastructure and whatnot. And I went over there to join the production operations team. I was the third person on the team, working again internationally across all of our different verticals, all our different types of production, all our different regions, to help build the infrastructure of the studio and kind of look at how best to do that. So I was there for 9-10 months before I left to take the new opportunity. But even in that time, the scale of growth is phenomenal, especially in the international market. So I learned a lot and had a really good experience during that time. And the second part of that was...
Sorry, everyone. I'm not going to play the whole interview, you'll be relieved to hear. But these are the next questions, which I've found how to show you.
Short answer is yes, absolutely. Context on that, I'd consider shooting anywhere if the firstly creative was relevant, for one, but secondly the infrastructure and support system were there, is a big factor, and thirdly it would obviously be in a comparative sense to other potential locations and kind of looking at the advantages of one versus the other. But absolutely, it would be considered. Absolutely, I would say it's essential to kind of to bolster and to boost that kind of part of the economic development of the film and TV industry in particular. Film commissions, you kind of see in every film location in the world will have a film commission, or at least a body of their government to specialized in that kind of economic development and support and whatnot. Working with them on tax incentives, on infrastructure, on connecting to the appropriate people in the region and crew and things like that. So that's as far as I would say. I think that's essential to have a presence and to have a governing body to really
we do too.
steering the conversation and marketing the region and kind of and you know, building those networks and relationships, and because it takes time, right? That's the thing as well. Like, you know, you can set these things up and it's not like everyone's just going to turn up the next day. Like, these things take time to build trust and knowledge. And it's just, you know, people don't know about things unless they're told about them, especially in the film and TV industry. It's not like it's going to be on the front page of the newspaper. You know, it's word of mouth, a huge part of this. So that network growing and creating access to information and knowledge is essential. My preference would be a Pinewood type of facility right next to town, right? So you can kind of have the best of both worlds. I mean, as long as the facility is secure, right, and you know, you're kind of protecting your people and your IP and whatnot. It's the closer you are to other amenities, like, you know, even that crew will benefit from, right, and talent and whatnot, all the better. And also the if you can minimize commuting time from hotel to location, all the better. So if it's in town, if people can walk to the studio, dream, absolute dream, right? You're cutting out transport costs, all those kind of things. It's just giving people an opportunity to kind of have a bit more freedom and not just turn up to work every day and go home and go to sleep, right? They kind of have a bit of an opportunity to mill around, and it's not such a difficult prospect. That said, you know, if you're within half an hour drive away from town or from the hotel, that's pretty good, right? That as far as it goes, especially when you're I'll call this a distant location, especially when you're in a region like that, to have that, you know, in relatively close is hugely advantageous. For me, I'll speak personally right away, that it's a driving factor in anything I do. I'm trying to encourage that, and from the business perspective, and I'll speak specifically about virtual production XR, it is the single greatest and most significant opportunity our industry has ever had to significantly reduce the carbon footprint of our industry, right? Like the most significant thing prior to this was removing plastic water bottles from set. Like, it's been incremental. There's been millions and millions of dollars, and there's councils created and whatnot of trying to find ways to reduce our carbon footprint in the industry. Nothing substantial has ever happened. So the opportunity I see with virtual production XR is, you know, the numbers we're seeing so far are like, you're reducing the carbon footprint or carbon emissions by 25 to 50% when shooting on virtual production versus traditional production. And obviously that's a case-by-case basis, but, you know, let's just do a basic one where you're sending 200 crew to a desert to film a Star Wars movie, instead of putting them on a stage where you're kind of doing it all. You sent a few people out to get the stuff, and then you're doing it all on the stage. You're not sending 200 people on planes. You're not sending a whole unit out. Like, it's just obvious when you know, it's really basic math when you look at it and think about it like that. So for me, any advances like that, any reduction in carbon emissions for the industry is hugely beneficial. That's the but in general, it's the technical roles. It's the software, the hardware, working with the equipment, working with the design engines, and all those different elements, which are all very specialized and in their own field. That it lacks. And then you go on to the craft elements, as you kind of alluded to, and I'll include even the producer in there, the director, the DP, the costume designers. All of them need to be educated on the technology. They all need to know how it works, because it's not like turning up on set or on location and filming something. You need to know your way around the environment and how the work flows to be able to do it. So there's general education about the field, but then there's also very specialized education and talent growth needed to manage and produce good quality work on the equipment and software and whatnot.
All right, guys. I'm being beckoned from the side of the stage because we have Artemis, the co-founders and owners of Artemis Films, due to present to you now. But in summary, I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure talking to you all. I think Norfolk has a magnificent opportunity. The ecosystem is here and it's ripe for exploitation. And we have very much enjoyed working with the university and all the other stakeholders to date to see how we can contribute to this exciting development. And I think next steps for us would be, hopefully, to see how we could tangibly get involved with a material opportunity, which I hope can manifest from days like today. So thank you all for your time, and I believe there's a short video coming on in advance. Thank you.
No short video. Hello, everybody. Thanks to Piers for that very insightful presentation, which covered about 70% of what we were going to say, so I'm delighted. We can all get to the bar. I have to say, it's the first sound stage that I've ever been on with a full bar in it. Well done. Yeah. Hurrah. I am the CEO of Artemis Films and also of Anglia Film Studios, and this is Hilary Davis, who will now introduce herself. Up to the mic, darling.
I'm Hilary Davis, and I'm COO of Anglia Film Studios. I've been working with Julia for the past 5 years.
Yes. So how did I come up with the idea to build this quite large facility in Norfolk? I was approached by some people in LA about having a regional studio, and I used to live up here, husband before the one I'm with now, and always loved it. My tagline is Norfolk. It may be flat, but it's fabulous. And I love it here, and it's the most beautiful place, I think. You've got the best locations. You've got absolutely fantastic cities here. I actually was working with Kevin Loader and sent him up here to make David Copperfield. He didn't know that Norwich has the best Dickensian streets probably in the country. So that was a good one. I didn't get any commission for that, but never mind, we'll move on. So I've always loved it here, and it seemed to me it was a great place. So to cut a long story short, I knew a landowner. We found a site via him, which is not as close to Norwich as I would like. However, I want to just make the point that we've been approached recently about a production with 3 massive A-list stars, and I mean really A-list stars. And one of the things that really appeals to them about making the film in Norfolk is that where we are, they're not going to touch the sides. They're going to be put up in a stately home. Nobody's going to know that they're there. And that really appeals to the producers. They want to be in their own world, in their own space. And so the facility that we're building will be purpose-built by one of the biggest studio builders in the country, who I'm sure Piers knows very well, Stage 50. So we're just going to show you what the site plan looks like. Yay, it worked. Hurrah. So here we are. So this is it. There are 3 phases to the build. Phase 1 is underway as we speak at the moment. It is an old gymnasium building. As you know, there are many old RAF sites up here, Rainham of which was one. Not purpose-built, but phase 1 has a fantastic building which is 9,000 square feet with additional facilities, and we're renovating that right now and have put in a change of use. So that's going to be up and running by probably, I want to say, late October. You know builders, we want October, it's bound to be November, maybe January if we're lucky. It's going to be a fantastic facility. It will have all the bells and whistles with it. It will have costume, hair and makeup, offices. It's got masses of parking for circuses. It will be able to be used as a VP stage as well, and it will be sound friendly. We're definitely soundproofing the roof. Phase 2 is going to be a much bigger facility with a 20,000-foot purpose-built stage and a 10,000-foot, built by Stage 50. Stage 50 have currently got a number of sites in the M25 corridor. George Clooney just finished filming at their Winnersh site. So they really know what they're doing, and their stages are absolutely fantastic. And it will also be available for, obviously, the usual thing, conferences and esports, because esports is rapidly becoming a big thing. The most important thing on the site, the accommodation which we are building. I have always said from day one, great to hear Piers saying this, that accommodation is key to the success of any facility like this in Norfolk. Because as a producer, and I've worked in locations all over the world, the cost of bringing your HODs and your key crew up, it's prohibitive. And Norfolk does not have a regional screen office, which it desperately needs a regional screen office and facility, such as Screen Yorkshire, for financing, where there are regional incentives for producers to come up to the region. So we will have 10 studios for students, and we will have 10 one-bedroom departments for visiting HODs. In time, there may well be a hotel built on the site, which would be very exciting. And phase 3 will be another 30,000 square feet. We may have a tank. We're thinking about that at the moment. So we don't need to go into any of the things we were going to say about the growth and the global growth and the fact that the M25 corridor seems to be the principal place where everybody is building stages. I mean, there seems to be one announced a week. I can tell you that of some of the stages that are being built right now in the new facilities, one of them's just been taken by Amazon for 15 years. Now, what does that do? It means that independent producers can't get in. Obviously, there are studios like Twickenham, which is a fantastic facility, but it's very difficult for them to get into some of these facilities. So what we wanted was a facility that could welcome in high-end film and television production, but also where independents could come and work with us. And as part of that, with our overall financing, what we're going to do is to have a film fund that will be available for local filmmakers in particular, but also for visiting productions where we can offer some form of equity incentive so that they can come in and work with us. So now we'll go, we don't need to bother about all of that. I've said all of that. Piers has said all that. Yeah, right, let's get to the bar. Yeah, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Just zipping through this. I mean, let's go. This is us. So Julia, Hilary, Jules Robinson, an ex-manager from Pinewood, director of Pinewood, who's very high up in PACT and organises a lot of things that some of you may have been to. This is the team behind it. And so within a few weeks, when our main planning goes in, we'll be making a big formal announcement. We've done a little piece with the EDP today, but we'll be making a formal announcement. And we'd like to circulate, we will circulate our details to everybody. We'd encourage everyone here to get in touch with us. We'd love to know your thoughts. We've already got 3 major productions talking about coming to work with us. Norfolk has so much to offer, but what you don't have is a big purpose-built facility. And that's what we hope to provide for all of you and for the region. And now Hilary is just going to say a little bit about education. And can I just give a shout out to Laura and our fabulous educators, to Garant and to UEA and to NUA and also to City College, because they have the students that are going to form the crew of the future. And if you've got the crew here, if you train the crew, if you train them to be one of the best crews in the country, you are going to help this region to economically grow in a way that will be exponential. And what you need to do is to train them and give them a facility to work on, in addition to EPIC and the excellent facility at October, where they can stay in the region and have the jobs, and where they don't have to migrate to the M25 corridor. So Hilary's going to say a little about...
Well, I think Julia said it all. We have engaged with the local educators. We're very, very passionate about training up the next generation of crew so that they can remain in the region, so that Norfolk has a fantastically trained and experienced crew base, so production can continue to boom in the region and everybody will benefit from it.
So that's basically us. As I said, really love you all to get in touch. Any of you that wants to talk about what we're doing, timing, we'd love to talk to you all. There's going to be a ton of jobs when the main facility is built. We're going to also, we're looking at having a creative hub on site. We've already got a camera company, lighting company, lots of companies wanting to come and base themselves with us. And so now we are going to give a shout out to Norfolk Screen, to Claire and Craig, who from the first time we came up here 8 months ago, not really knowing anyone at all, they've been fantastically supportive, as has everyone else that we've been working with. And they really know their stuff about Norfolk. And so it is with great pleasure that I am now going to introduce the wonderful Claire and Craig from Norfolk Screen. Thank you all very much.
Julia, Hilary, thank you very much for the introduction. It's lovely to be here. This is Craig Higgins, who is my co-founder.
Hello, everyone.
My business partner, my rock. He is the...
We're not married.
No, sorry, business partner.
Like a married couple now.
Director of Development, and I'm Claire Chapman, the Managing Director. Similar to what Hilary said, actually, a lot of what we were going to say today has already been said, so we'll keep it short. We can't promise to be as entertaining as you might have witnessed last night on television as the pitch for running the country, but we'll have a go at trying to pitch for running the film office in Norfolk. So the first thing we want to do is tell you, is it a bit of an echo? I want to tell you about us. So Craig and I set up Norfolk Screen in two years ago, pretty much to the day. The reason for that was that there was an obvious void and a gap in the representation of the region in terms of promoting it as a film destination production. And that was sort of pretty much the case since the demise of Screen East 10 years prior. Creative England obviously had a significant presence in terms of promoting the region, but they weren't so much on the ground. So we spoke to them about this. We kind of were a bit nervous that we might be treading on toes by doing what we did, which was literally putting a flag in the sand to say, we're here, we're going to promote the county, we're going to let people know who and what we have here that could attract film production and hopefully service more production needs, as we indeed have proved to do. So just going back to the slide here, the key obviously is, we can't pretend otherwise, we would love to be the official film office as recommended in terms of the need of one in the Osberg report. We don't promise to be oven ready. We don't promise that we can do it all yet, but with significant funding and greater collaboration with all the stakeholders and partners that we've been talking to today, we believe we can deliver. We have already managed to achieve quite a significant element of the aspects required of a film office, marketing the county, obviously, acting as an intermediary between screen productions and county authorities, which Craig will speak of in a minute. We do collect and track data on the Norfolk Screen sector, which is something that I was talking to Chris Starkey about earlier today. We do have that information, and we certainly know how to get it. So again, maybe we don't need to spend so much time and any more money trying to do that. We can help deliver. Now, I want to just let Craig speak a bit more about our specific service, but it's kind of obvious, I think, from the slide that he's about to show you, so I'll just hand you over to him.
Thank you. So just talking a little bit more about our service. The idea of Norfolk Screen is that we are here to capture, promote, and signpost everything that Norfolk has to offer. And we do this through kind of 5 key areas. And the first one is our website, and that is very much a search-driven website, which has a number of databases on there, such as cast and crew, locations, which is actually through an external piece of software. This is called Movie Site, and that's an industry-led piece of software that is used by Filming in England and numerous film offices throughout the UK. And also it has a section to facilitate services and facilities on the database. We also look to promote Norfolk via our social media channels. Again, it's a great place to showcase new locations, films that I've shot here, news stories, and it's just a good way to make people aware of what we're up to in the region. We also respond to production inquiries and recommend locations according to briefs that we get from productions, which we can talk to our districts about. We host regular industry events to help educate and enlighten some of those who are interested in breaking into film and TV. And we also look at creating connections and establishing partnerships. So, Claire?
Craig, I should have mentioned earlier, but we do want to thank our extraordinarily patient and dedicated advisory board. They give their services voluntarily, and a majority of them are actually proper grown-up practitioners in the industry, so they do know what they're talking about. And we do take great guidance and assist from them. Very recently, Graham Creelman, whom I'm sure many of you will know, has just agreed to become our new chair, which is fantastic. Sam Burton, who's here with us today, she used to work for Screen East, so she certainly knows how it was before. So we're grateful that she's joined our team as well. And David Jukes, I haven't seen you yet. I presume you're here. Yes, they are. Hello. David's been incredibly helpful to us as well, but given that his experience as head of inward investment at New Anglia. Professor Lindsay Duthie, she's fairly new as a member, but she is the CEO of the Production Guild of Great Britain, which is a great asset to us. And Deborah Hayward, who of course is a well-known film producer, having made a number of Oscar-nominated films such as Les Mis, Bridget Jones, Love Actually, and is indeed the founder of Monumental Pictures. And Jack Horwitz, who's our solicitor, who gives us so much of his in-kind legal support. And Julian Gerald, who, as you well know, a local chap. He's BAFTA-nominated film and TV director. And Hilary Bevan-Jones, who's also based here, Emmy-winning and BAFTA-nominated producer. So we're very grateful to them. Thank you. We're also incredibly grateful to the endorsement that we've received from the key national industry bodies, the British Film Institute, of course, the British Film Commission, Creative England, who I mentioned earlier, Production Guild of Great Britain, who I mentioned earlier, and also Screen Skills, which has been very key to us in terms of discussing with them, the training and skills development needs required. So thank you again to them. Back to Craig to just talk a bit more about the website.
So for those who haven't been on our website, and linking back into the things I was saying about our service, this is what our homepage looks like. And some of the key pages that I would always direct people to are our directories, which I mentioned features our crew, facilities and locations. We have a really useful Filmed in Norfolk page, which helps to showcase some of the films that I've shot here recently. A Why Norfolk page, a film testimonials page, which includes quotes from people like Sir Kenneth Branagh, who filmed This England here last year, and also Stephen Fry. There's information about the districts and highways, events that we've ran, and some local training and skills information. And just to kind of bore you with some statistics,
and to shout out about
and to shout out about them, well done, Claire, is that we are really proud about the number of people who've been to the website. It didn't launch until November 2020, and since launching, it's had over 16,000 users, which has generated 75,000 views. So we know people are using the website, people are coming to it. We have nearly 250 cast and crew registered, 120 facilities and services, and nearly 120 locations. But we want to grow that. We want to continue to build that because people are hitting our site and we want to make sure that they can see that Norfolk has a lot to offer. So if anyone in the audience who's not registered, please do check it out. And just in terms of our social media platform, it's just over 7,000 now, so that is growing. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about working in partnership with our local authorities. So as it comes in, we do get a lot of production inquiries. We do link in with our districts. So some examples of productions that we've worked with, this morning, Ancient Britain with Ray Mears, Body Squad and Chemistry of Death, and some of the districts we've spoken about. But there's also productions that we know are coming to Norfolk, but unfortunately have not decided to shoot here, and that's included Great Expectations, and Untitled Netflix production, and an untitled Apple production, which I won't name. But, people are coming to Norfolk, and we want to try to encourage more and more people to come and check Norfolk out. So back to you, Claire.
Thank you. Just a very brief, because I know we're running out of time. Just want to give you a quick kind of upshot of a kind of a good day at the office. We came across, in fact, Craig, you read in the trades that there was a feature film production of the Spencer story, Lady Diana Spencer story, being, in development. And we found out, excuse me, who the UK producer was, who I happened to know from way back when. So I tracked him down, and I said, obviously, because the entire film is based and going to be shot in Norfolk, can we help? And he said, no, it's not going to be shot in Norfolk. It's going to be all shot in Germany. So I said, well, why is that then? And to be fair, it was during the pandemic. And he said, well, the actual COVID filmmaking practices and rules and regulations were far easier and less stringent in Germany than they were in the UK. But they seemed to think that they had found all the external and internal locations they wanted. So I said, well, how about you just come up? Well, just come to Norfolk and just come and have a look. Let us organise a recce. Let's get, a location manager on the case. Give us the brief and we'll find you what we can. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. I mean, okay, they were only shooting here for 4 days. They probably were here in total for about 10. But what happened was that they did come and they did find what they needed for certain external locations. They spent a heck of a lot of money here. They, hotels, accommodation, pubs, facility services, obviously crew. And in total, they spent, I think it was, about £785,000 or £6,000 in those 4 days whilst here. So it was a good day in the office because it means that if you do reach out and you have your contacts and you know who to talk to, you can make it happen. So we are grateful for that, whether you like the film or not. I'm not going to whiz through the regional challenges and recommendations because they've all been said. Pretty much everything that we were going to say has been eloquently said by those before us. So I want to thank all our sponsors because they make it happen for us because we do not have any funding as yet. So our sponsors enable us to cover our overheads, cover our general running costs. And we love them. Thank you. So if you want to get in touch with us, do. This is how. And on that note, I will hand you over to our host in terms of the building, to Jonathan Thursby, who's lurking in the background, to talk to you about what goes on in this building. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to EPIC. Before I can really get into what EPIC is and what I see as our future, I suppose I ought to go in a bit about the past. On this site, it's sort of been involved in the film world for probably 100 years now, because there was a cinema here. But in the early 60s, it was knocked down, and they created a bowling alley. And, and at the back there, you'll see the original bowling alley letters. So they're still here. Now, Anglia TV took it over in the early 70s. So for the last 50 years, it has been a TV and film studio. So Anglia did the big shows like Sale of the Century. I'm sure some of you look old enough to remember that. Some of you probably don't. And probably don't remember the Live from Norwich, put us on the map. But Anglia used it. It was their largest studio. It's 10,000 square feet. As their main production. So Sale of the Century, I've mentioned, Tales of the Unexpected was filmed here. And if you remember that, and I'm sorry, I'm going back again, but the intro graphics where the fire, there is a fake fireplace on the next floor up where that was filmed, and that's still here. So we've got a lot of history. So what are we now? So I took it over about 10 years ago. The council had taken it over between myself and Anglia, and I took it over with a vision to get Tricia back here. My passion and my interest is TV and film. I'd been in that, believe it or not. I started in wedding videos in 1986. So talk about where I started to where I am now, owning a TV studio, and I love all the gadgets that go with it. It really drives me. So I took it over in 2012 from the council. They'd created a great foundation, and I believed in that vision. We had students below us, so we have access to media below us, and we have currently 2 or 3 students who were students who have come through the ranks to even someone like Ben, who's on that camera there, who is flying, filming and doing work for the BBC at the minute. So talk about what everyone has listened to this afternoon, which has been great and really promising what's happening. That we're doing it along with Charlie in October. We're really feeling it. So we had a long history of the studio has of making things. So where we've been over the last few years is expanding that. So we have a studio, we can go live at any time. We are live now. It is an incredible setup. It's an HD studio. I believe there's only one 4K studio in the world, in the UK. We probably won't go beyond HD or go to 4K because we'll have moved on. But we have everything else that we need to help productions. And that is from staff on board to freelancers. We have probably one of the largest freelancers booked in Norfolk. To Helping October, they asked us, could we find them a World War II tank? Well, overnight I found 20 of them, and they could have had their whole army on it, of which 3 actually moved. And going into the virtual production, we didn't take half the tank, but Lex Hag are obviously big into virtual production. We brought half that tank in here during COVID with all the lockdown, and we filmed a trailer for the tank. So we really have got, we're really in the centre of Norfolk, East Anglia, as providing facilities. So we have a Dolby Atmos sound studio next door, and later on, if you want a tour, and I'm not going to talk much longer, I have no slides, just one video. You can have a tour of all the facilities. So we have Dolby Atmos. We have a basic edit suite. It's one of the things I'd like to improve, but we basically use it for our own promo material. We have OB trucks, so we can actually take live programming out on the fields. We have our own camera kit. We have our own generator. We have our own vehicles. We have a first electric vehicle turning up in October 2020. Now, you'll all laugh. It's a Citroen Amy, but it's going to be out there taking our staff, no kit, but staff to the locations. We're upgrading all the lighting. You'll see it's good old-fashioned tungsten in here, but we're upgrading that in the next 2 months to LED. We've upgraded all our location lighting to LED, which not only helps the carbon footprint, but also health and safety in numbers of on-set. So it's a lot lighter, less power hungry, so it's a lot more efficient. Our next stage after that is putting solar panels on the roof so we can really run this place, possibly putting power back into the grid. So that's where we're going. We have absolutely everything under this roof, all the facilities, and all the contacts and staff that we need, links with all the local colleges, including the one below us. That's epic. It really is epic. And on that note, play VT.
Well, I won't be long. I know you've all got numb bums. I trust you found the research presentations of interest and are pleased with the quality of the showreel material we've commissioned to whet the appetite of national and international agencies to consider doing business in Norfolk and Suffolk. The Local Authority Research Steering Group will be meeting again to review any feedback you give us following this meeting, and we will look to widen our discussions with you, our sector practitioners. Please note we have a table at the side of the studio with information from a variety of business agencies offering information on various grant schemes, business support programs and apprenticeship information which might be of interest to you. So with that, I offer my thanks to our presenting team for their research insights, to Epic Studios for hosting and supporting this event. I know the catering team are about to bring out canapes and the bar is open and ready to serve you. And please take advantage of the Epic Studio Tour offer. Please enjoy the next hour or so of networking opportunities and thank you.